In the world of entertainment, some board games become game shows. Some game shows become board games. And some board games become game shows, which then become board games. These are the stories of the second thing I said, the second option.
Easily consumable entertainment meets easily consumable entertainment. Today we're talking about game show board games, the best of both worlds. I don't know what those worlds are, but it's definitely the best of both. But seriously, game shows are probably some of the most broadly appealing entertainment on the face of the earth. So it makes sense to try and combine those worlds of game shows and board games. See, you might notice a common trend between the two. Why not take the game out of the show and make it as a game you can play at home? That's what we're here to discuss. The first game we're going to be talking about today is Jeopardy! Probably the most omnipresent game show that is out there currently. This is the second edition of the board game, released in 1965, based off the 1960s run of Jeopardy! Hosted by Art Fleming, R.I.P. That might come as a shock to a lot of you that Jeopardy! Did not start in the 1980s, but the 1960s. So some of the answers and questions here are like, who was Martin Luther King? And the clue might be, trouble brewing. Inside the box here, you'll find a shrinkflated version of the Jeopardy! Board, and I'm not just talking about the lower prices, but the fact that you're actually one category short of the official game. On the original television show, there used to be 6 categories per round, but here they've only provided you with 5. The game also comes with these little clickers here that are meant to replicate the buzzers that you use on the show, and a piece of metal so sharp that I guarantee you it's caused at least a dozen deaths of tetanus. There's some play money it comes with. I'm ready to go rack for rack right now. And it also comes with a die. Now you might be confused as to why it comes with a die, and it's because if 2 people click in at the same time, then you roll a die to determine who gets to go first. I guess that's the simplest way they could have done it in the 1960s. It also comes with a pretty thick pad of questions and answers for the Master of Ceremonies to use. It's a complete experience. There's a little Daily Double slide. Each slide also has a Double Jeopardy slide. And there's also a Final Jeopardy slide. Although I guess its incorporation is kind of awkward since it just expects you to set it up like this. It's not really what it looks like on the original show. But like I said, it's a fully uncompromised experience. You just don't have the buzzers and you don't have a scoreboard or anything. You just do accounting to keep score. So this version here is going to be our baseline, because I think this is a perfectly serviceable compromise between authenticity and practicality. If you go too far in either direction, then the whole operation falls through. If you make it so authentic that the price of the game is like $50, then why bother? But if you make it so inauthentic that it doesn't even feel like you're playing the game, then why bother? The next version we have here is actually based off the 1980s run of Jeopardy! Featuring Alex Trebek. R.I.P. One of the criticisms that a lot of board game shows get, or I guess game show board games, I don't know which one is the preferred term these days, is that the person being the host isn't participating very much in the actual game. Now personally, this isn't a problem for me. I think it's fun to be in charge of the game, but I can see why you'd actually want to play a game when you are playing a game. So Tyco Games here has a different version of Jeopardy! You see, instead of one singular puzzle board, it gives you 6 of them. This gives you a selection of categories that you can choose from, while also having your own for you to read. The responsibilities of being the host and being able to play as a contestant are split. Some other points are awarded for authenticity, as they actually tried to recreate the shape of the CRT screens that they used at the time. There's something quite satisfying to me about elegant replications of the original show. So the clue doesn't actually appear in the window, but other than that, it's pretty close. You still have to do some accounting to keep score, unfortunately. They don't have a sort of scoreboard or anything, but they've got a hell of a lot of clues and answers. They also include Double Jeopardy here with appropriate branding to match, although, you know, the slides are still going to be blue. And I think what's best of all is that if you still want to play like the original game, if you don't mind having an extremely wide coliseum of a puzzle board, you still can, where there's 3 contestants and 1 host that's in charge of everything. This is, I'd say, would rank higher than the last there. There's a perfect balance of incorporation from the original branding and theming, where it feels more like the show, like a miniature version of the show, than the other one, which still feels like it, but some of it falls a bit short. Like, why the hell are you using a die? Like, if you're gonna be arbitrary, just be arbitrary. You don't need to include the die. Although, of course, another drawback is that some people complain, like me, that there's no version of like the scoreboard podiums or the lockout buzzers or anything. So in 1980, whatever, Electric Jeopardy was released. It's a little weird to me that it's not called Electronic Jeopardy, it's just Electric Jeopardy. It sounds like it's more frenzied, but it's just the same old boring Jeopardy. Now, this is pretty similar to the 1960s Jeopardy we just saw. One of the benefits is that the clue actually appears in the window there. However, a drawback is that, again, there's only 5 categories. I don't know why they couldn't have sprung for 6. But I don't think it's possible for humans to care less about that when we're talking about Electric Jeopardy. This version aims to provide an even more authentic Jeopardy experience by giving you not only your own scoring podiums, but electronic lockout buzzers. Now, some of you might be confused by that terminology. What do I mean by lockout buzzers? Well, anyone can just have a button that turns on a light and activates a sound, but the way that these are built are special. It only allows one light to be lit up at a specific time. That's the things I like. So this seems like this would be a very fun and authentic version of Jeopardy! However, there's a lot of caveats here. Number one, it runs off of a 9-volt battery, so go ahead and go back to 1990 and get yourself one of those. Second of all, I don't know if it's because the version I have is 35 years old, but you really need to hold down the button to get it to turn on. And also, I'm pretty sure that the green button here is biased against. I cannot really get it to turn on first, even if I swear I'm pressing them at the same time, unless I really hold it and turn it on. I don't know if it's broken or if it's just like that, but that's my experience here. And also, the scores change a lot in Jeopardy! There are 25 clues per round, 2 rounds, and a final Jeopardy! That's 53 score changes minimum. And each time you have to change the score, you have to go in there and fish your little fingernail in and turn it by hand yourself. It feels like the tiny gear on a brake adjuster that's like a pain in the ass to turn unless you use like a flathead screwdriver or something. It's actually tedious enough to where I would not even use this. I would say that this is trying to do too much here to where it bogs down the efficiency of it. What is the Dick Sucker 3000? See, that's the correct response. You gotta do that each time. It's gonna make this game last 4 fucking hours. I guess another drawback is there's no way to do negative numbers on this. I think some people might find the accounting using Play Money a bit inconvenient, but this definitely doesn't ameliorate that problem. One last thing, these two here, they're just a sticker, so in Final Jeopardy you cannot bid less than $100, unlike the real show. Not that big of a problem really, but you know, while we're bitching, might as well bitch. And the final version I have is Jeopardy from 2020. Now this is based off the era hosted by Mayim Bialik, rest in peace. She's not dead? Shit. Interestingly, this has an ISBN number, which is the number given to books, so we'll see what that's all about. So this doesn't come with a little puzzle board or anything. They expect you to construct the puzzle like this. Psst. Thank you, cat. What would I do without you? Now that was quite tedious, but to its credit, you're only going to be setting this up twice during each game, so I don't think a brief 2-minute interlude is a huge deal. Something I do like a lot is that it has the authentic font and look of the Jeopardy board. The way it works is, you know, say someone says Just Dance for 600, you just grab the card, you flip it over. Then you go to the book here, which, you know, has its own official ISBN, of course. You flip to that page in the book, and then you give the clue. Just Dance for 600. This 2000 film is about a coal miner's 11-year-old son who aspires to be a ballet dancer. Now you give the natural response of a Serbian film, and then you go to a different part of the book to check if the response was right. Oh, what is Billy Elliot? Of course. On the back of some of these cards, they have the Daily Double, where, you know,
the scores can really change.
And I think that that incorporation makes the most sense, but I think that's about all I can say positive about this. And even then, I wasn't very positive, I think. The book here is very slow. It breaks up the game flow quite a lot because you have to keep flipping back and forth between two different sections. And something you might notice is that they are not very efficient with how they use the paper here. They use 2 full pages just to list 5 clues. And this isn't a very thick book, so you might anticipate what I'm about to say next. There are in total, count them, 2 separate games that you can play, and after that, you cannot play anything new with this game. You've exhausted all of its content. The 1960s Jeopardy that I pulled up had 40 different games. You could play that game through 40 different times. And back when that was still new, they were releasing a new edition each year, so I think you could be tied it over with 40 games until the next edition came out. Once this is done, it's just some fancy graphics. And the way that Final Jeopardy works just isn't accurate, which is weird because there's no reason for it to be wrong. It has the category and the clue on the same face of the card. The way that Final Jeopardy works is that the players are informed of the category, they make a bid based on how confident they are they can accurately answer the clue, and then they reveal the clue. If you reveal them both at the same time, then the contestants have nothing to go off of, which is the point of the fucking revealing the category. The only reason I could even come up with for buying this version is that having an authentic version of the graphics here for your own at-home version. Maybe a craft or something. Even for $5, they could have put a few more clues there. You know, they could have at least, been generous and gave you 3. And so the next game I've got here is Wheel of Fortune. These 3 all came out in 1985, 1986, and 1987 respectively. The reason why they released different versions is because, obviously it comes with a limited amount of puzzles. That way the consumer would keep having new content to keep going in. I think it might have made sense to release the puzzles separately from the games. That way the consumer doesn't have to keep buying a whole ass board game. I guess a distinct advantage of having to buy a new version each year is that the board isn't super well made. I mean, this is nearly 40 years old, but these are supposed to be up, like this. They're not supposed to reveal the goddamn puzzle. They have quite an elaborate system here for the puzzle board. So we have these cards here that have a bunch of gibberish on it. You slide it into the back of the puzzle board, and through the tiny spaces, it reveals how many letters are in the puzzle. And it comes with a lot of puzzles, over 70. They were even more prolific than Jeopardy. You got some play money to play with. I mean, I don't know what else you'd do with it, and some free spin tokens here. It also comes with a used letter board, or what they describe as a crayon wipe-off board. I don't know if dry erase markers didn't exist in 1986 or something, but this is what they expect you to do. So when a letter has been used, you scribble it out with the mysteriously unbranded crayon, and then at the end of the game, you use some soap and water, or whatever, or just, sheer willpower to erase it. I mean, it's not great. But I do like how this board is engineered. I do like that they included a used letterboard. I think it would have made more sense to just have chips that go over it. So how do they tackle the namesake wheel? Just a spinner. Like, come on, man. You were so good for so much of this, and then they give you a spinner. And it's only one spinner. And you might be wondering, well, last I checked, there was only one wheel on Wheel of Fortune. Well, listen up, dumbass. In between each round, the layout of the wheel on Wheel of Fortune changes. Also, that clicking from the flapper is just synonymous with the game, with the experience. Well, let's talk about something I like. So, they have a very clever solution for allowing play between 2 players. Because usually with game show board games, the minimum amount of players is 3. There has to be at least 1 host and 2 contestants. 1 host has to know what's going on behind the scenes, and there has to be 2 contestants competing against each other. But with Wheel of Fortune, you can play with 2 players because of this booklet here. The way that letters are revealed is that a contestant guesses a letter, let's say T, as you can see, there is a T in position 25, which is here. Now, despite my criticisms of the spinner here, I think there's a full experience here, and I think this solution of allowing 2 players to play is very smart and very clever. Now, obviously with this, you don't have things like the final round or the toss-up round, but the core game is still here, like 75% uncompromised. And honestly, I think like 20% of the population even knows how Wheel of Fortune is played to begin with, so I think most people will be fine with this. But what if you weren't? Deluxe Wheel of Fortune! Finally, No more Wheel of Fortune for the common peasant. This one features an authentic replica of the wheel, bitch! Yeah, so let's get to that wheel. Now this one has the exact same puzzle board as the other versions. We don't really need to talk about it. It comes with a fancy plastic cash drawer to keep accounting nice and simple. And here we have it, the authentic replica of the wheel. Despite the obvious change here, there are some more things that are more significantly changed. So the wedges here can actually pop off and be switched out in a way that's consistent with the actual game. And fortunately, in the instructions, they include how to keep it consistent with the original game. Although I guess the instructions are the slightest bit confusing. So insert bankrupt over free spin. Yes, sir. Now insert 500 over 150. Well, jackass, there's two 150s. Which one do you want me to do? Now, something I do like here is that each wedge has a custom slot that you can use. So it doesn't have to be 100% authentic to the original show. Even though you can make it so, you can customize your gameplay to whatever psychotic beliefs you want. But let's give this wheel an actual spin. I think it's better than the original, but the sound to me is really not that pleasant. And also, I've had a decent amount of practice with this. A lot of people won't spin this right and will do that. And this is a very minor criticism here, but the flipper here kind of interferes with the suspense of the wheel spin. It slows down the wheel way too fast. When you have an actual spinner, the spinner slows down on its own. You can go like, but here it's just 100. Oh, you lose everything, dumbass. Once again, there is also no solution for the final round, which I feel like for the deluxe version should be a priority, especially considering that you can change the wedges on the wheel. Why would you not include like an overlay for like the final round wedge? And the final version here we're going to talk about is also from Five Below, Wheel of Game Fortune. This is a version I've had for 3 years now, and as you might be able to tell, this was a spinner, and I wasn't very pleased with it, so I made my own mechanism to make it into a wheel that you actually spin. There's no option to change the wheel. I wouldn't have expected that for $5. But something else that is removed is that there's no way to play with two people. These are how the puzzles are set up, just like this. And if you want to see this fancy schmancy puzzle board, well, there you go. There's your puzzle board. This version of the puzzle board absolutely necessitates that someone is in on it. They have to play as the host. There's no way that they can play with the other players. I guess you could take turns being the host, but that sounds maybe just the least bit retarded. I guess a positive that you can do is that you can actually make your own puzzles here, but if you're gonna be adding external elements here and using a piece of paper and a pencil, just use that piece of paper and pencil and play fucking Hangman. But like, this is a very, very weak version here. And I know that it's only $5, but come on, man. A spinner, no final round, no toss-up round, and you have to have 3 people to play? I just can't, man. I just really can't. The next game we're going to be talking about was one of the biggest successes of the late 2000s and then has struggled to come back since then. Deal or No Deal, where the general public has said no deal.
The game you know and love is back. This time on the Banker's Private Island.
Deal or No Deal Island is a show that was in the movie Idiocracy.
Yes, there were a hell of a lot of releases for Deal or No Deal, and this isn't even all of them. There were different handheld electronic games, different card games, different board games, different merchandise. A hell of a lot for a show that ran in its prime for 4 years on television. It has more entries in its chronology than many other game shows that have been running for decades. Explain that, science. So we're going to be talking about the first release of Deal or No Deal here. This is the one that NBC is most proud of. It's the one that Alec Baldwin was holding, that episode of 30 Rock. Hope he's doing well. It comes with a shit ton of play money, briefcase, envelope type things, a prize scoring board money tree. I don't know the official nomenclature. Different prize amount cards here, and some pennies here that you can award, just to make sure that when they actually win the penny, at least they feel bad about it too. And before you ask, I would rather die than break the seal on that. Now, one of the things that's bad about this right off the bat, and I'll point it out, is that the box that the game comes in doesn't fit. There is a slot in the plastic insert that's meant to hold these briefcases, but can only hold up to there, and these briefcases here aren't held by anything. Like, what the fuck? So what that means is that if you move the game even slightly, you're gonna have a goddamn mess when you open it back up. Now here's how this works. You get a briefcase. This one was actually misglued here. You draw a card from the deck, you put it in the back of it, and then you put it down. You get a briefcase, you put a card in, and so on. You do this 26 times. It's very fun. Now, this does get some points for trying to recreate the props from the game here. You have a pretty authentic recreation of the money tree from the original game. I also do like that they've tried to recreate these suitcases here. They're actually so authentic that they basically brought them back for their $100 million spectacular special, which is fucking hilarious, by the way. Alright, side note. They did a special where they announced that they were going to give away $100 million if the contestants could accomplish this challenge. The challenge was to select 2 briefcases out of 150, and if the 2 briefcases they selected were correct, they would win that $100 million. Not even 100 briefcases, they went up to 150 cardboard briefcases for them to select from. That's odds of 1 in over 20,000 to get that right. Not just selecting 1 correct briefcase, selecting 2 correct briefcases. Anyways, that's why I hate this version. I actually do not hate this version. I do not like that the briefcases don't open up the way you reveal the prize amounts is like that. I also don't like that the cards that come with it don't look like the interiors of the briefcases on the actual show. There's also some specific esoteric rules that I believe only appear in this version, where it'll say things like, host wins kitty, or holder wins kitty. And what this is referring to is that in certain points in the game, you can use your winnings to wager on what you think the case is going to be. Why? I don't know anyone that even knows that that's a thing in this game, or why you would do that. I appreciate that they tried to innovate the genre a little bit by allowing the host to, like, bet with their previous winnings what they think the case would be, but I digress. Now, someone does have to play as the host here, if anything, just so that way there's a banker, but I feel like there's enough involvement with being the host and banker where there's, like, sort of a personality that you can envelop that could really get into the fun role-playing of this game. Now, some of you more astute people might notice is that you don't actually need these briefcases here to play it. You could just play the game just by drawing cards like this. That is the same experience as if you'd individually opened each of them. And in fact, you don't even need the cards. You could just randomly eliminate them between rounds. You see, Deal or No Deal is not a very strong game. And when you put it in something like a board game where the gameplay is integral to it, believe it or not, the cracks in the game begin to show. The game was super contextualized in it being a show. It heavily relied on tension and build-up and the experience of the mood and the atmosphere and the lighting. I do think that this is the best way to play the game here as a board game. It does have the full board, it does have the briefcases, it does have the amounts. Although they did leave something out that is pretty iconic to the original show, and that's the cover that goes over the offer button. So if you're insane like me, you can just make your own. It's not critical to playing the game, you don't need to add in extra materials here, but it is fun to do it like this.
Something that always disappointed me as a child, though, was that there was never any alternate ways to play the game. It was always the same amounts on the same board, when in the actual show, they would do special versions with double the amounts or higher top prizes, etc., but none of the home game versions allow you to play with an alternate board. So when I was a kid, I built this cardboard mechanism where you could put paper tabs into these little windows and then pull them out to eliminate them. This would also allow you to be able to change the amounts around should you so desire. And so naturally, Grant Denyer himself plagiarized this idea from my mind and used it for the Australian version of Deal or No Deal. However, they were so sloppy in their plagiarism that they miscolored the $20,000 graphic. It's supposed to be red, not green.
How do you fuck this up? Also, the only way I even know about this is because of this review online. There are no actual pictures of this board game that exists, so I had to pay my friend to film footage of it to show it off. You guys are so goddamn spoiled, you don't even know. Apparently, they also didn't label the briefcases correctly. Like, come on, man, this never happened on the board game version of the Channel 7 run of the show. This is on Channel 10. By my math, that's supposed to be at least 42% better.
Now, like I said earlier, Deal or No Deal really hinges on it being a show to prop its game up. The tension is absolutely indispensable to the game. It's just selecting numbers after all. So this version here, Deal or No Deal electronic game, 1 to 4 players, 8+, tries to assuage that problem. Now, as you can see, it does say deal or pass on it. This was because this version here didn't have a sticker on it, and this was like an in-joke with my girlfriend at the time. She's no longer with me, so that's a good omen to start on. And then you realize it doesn't work because it's been abandoned for 16 years and the batteries have rotted out the inside. But don't worry, because I have actually prepared for this and have a second copy of Deal or No Deal electronic game. And corroded batteries. We're gonna give it a shot and see if it works. And there you go, just like the original show. That is not grating at all. You feel like you're really there. Another feature is it has a little like turntable here if you want to play like Russian roulette or something. But it's just there. You just press the buttons and play the game. I do like the sound effects that it comes with. Although, I feel like there should be a different sound effect for eliminating literally the top amount. But it does look quite nice to have a light under each of these panels here. It's very fancy. It's just very prone to battery leakage, and I don't know why. This is the second copy I own, and both of them have the same problem. And the next one here is Deal or No Deal card game. Now, they've done the liberty of packaging it for you in a nice silver lunchbox, so that's pretty cool. This version's signed by some fucking loser. I don't know who that is. And inside here, they've done away with the briefcases. The briefcase envelope type things I showed you are now just cards in themselves. These cards go down, then these cards go on top of them, and then to reveal it, you just pull away the top card. The backs here look more authentic to the original show, so there's points for that. But as you might have noticed, it comes with a hell of a lot of cards when it only needs 26. That's because not only does it come with suitcase cards, but it comes with round keeper tracker cards. I feel like the average person can figure out that you start at 6 and then go down from there. They're like, where are we at? It also comes with bank offer cards, so the person playing as the banker can give you $60,000. Now, there is some limitations for this. The lowest possible offer you can make is $500, and the highest possible you can make is $400,000. So there are certain edge cases where that might be way too high or way too low of an offer to even make for it to be fair. And the reason they bothered is because this is a game you can play in solitaire, apparently. So they expect you to set this up on your own and play by yourself. So we'll just play a mini version here. We'll select number 4 and reveal case. Now, there's no way you can set this up on your own without having to flip it over a second time, but $1,000 is now out of the mix. So now, this is how you make offers for yourself. $375,000. Well, you know what? That sounds like a pretty goddamn good offer, so I'm gonna accept that. And number 4, of course, contains the amount of $50,000. So that's a good deal, but it doesn't feel fucking earned, because it's just random. They dropped this in later versions of the card game for obvious reasons, because you can't play this by yourself. This is a game that necessitates 2 people. Another minor thing, and this isn't the game's fault, it's them trying to be more authentic to the original game, is that they use the Season 1 version of the logo that's tilted, and this version is just less readable than the actual straight-on version that they use later on. I don't know why this was a thing that NBC did. It just looks super cheap, like they just cut out a screenshot from the TV show. I do like the way they have the prize panels set up here. It's just on a pad of paper. Each of them are double-sided, so there are a couple hundred games you could play out of this. And unlike the previous games we've seen, this can't really run out of content unless you run out of pads of paper. You can play this game again and again, if that's something you want to do. I do like that it comes in its own little mini suitcase. It's quite authentic. You can carry this around like this, and you know, you'd look like a fancy time businessman. And honestly, you know, the more I think about it, it's just more simple to have a card that goes over another card and then reveal it like that. To pull it out of its own envelope is a bit arduous. What's funny about this version is that it actually didn't sell very well. There are a few reviews of people seeing these rotting away on clearance shelves to where Cardinal actually repackaged it and tried to use the silver attaché case in other games, and actually still sells it under their moniker Spin Master now as domino cases. They went all in on this Deal or No Deal card game thing and are still trying to sell off their investment. And this is the final one here. Now, you might be wondering why I store it in a 6-year-old's lunchbox.
Can't play it now. Now you're not gonna know what it's like to play Deal or No Deal.
Mind your fucking business. Now, if you can believe it, I actually have 2 versions of this game. The jumbo size by Spin Master and the normal card size from Dollar Tree, also by Spin Master. I don't know. I don't know. It's a similar principle to the one we just saw. You lay out the amounts like this, and then you put the briefcases over them like that. I guess that could be a problem for some people, if you're retarded. They did include their own little offer thing, a bank offer guideline, which is even worse than the cards. Let me explain why. So it's only judged by the highest amount that is left, right? So if $1 million is still in play by round 4, then you can get offered $168,000. That's pretty early in the game to be offering that high, and there are some points where the offer that is given is just downright inexplicable. So for example, if the highest amount that you have left is the $100,000 here, well, that's less than $400,000, it's higher than $75,000, by round 6, you get offered $125,000. So of course you'd take that deal, because that's higher than what you could possibly win. Now if you remember from a previous video, they also misspelled the word briefcase as briefcase. That's just, you know, par for the course for Spin Master, I guess. And this is the way that they designed the prize panel layout. Why? Barely anything here even looks like the original show. The briefcase backs look like the show from the first few seasons, not the version that was airing when this came out, mind you. And this, it doesn't look like the game. It's harder to follow. There's no analog here. There's no parallel. This means nothing to nobody. Nothing to anybody, I might say. And this is the final version here. Let's just get it out of the way. It's from Dollar Tree. We know how it's gonna be. It doesn't even come with a pad of paper. It has this. What is this? This isn't dry erase. This isn't wipe off like that weird Wheel of Fortune crap. It's the 21st century. You couldn't figure out a solution to include a board? My god. Another problem with this is that the briefcase cards, which are spelled correctly fortunately, are the exact same size as the amount cards here. So you can't move these around really or anything unless you are very careful. At least with the jumbo size briefcase cards, you had a decent amount of clearance to move the briefcase cards around should you so desire, and there are many reasons why you might want to for the Deal or No Deal game. It comes with the same stupid bank offer guideline thing that isn't applicable to Deal or No Deal, but, I mean, like, what, do you think I'm gonna endorse? Battery exhausted, okay. And the next one here is, are you smarter than a 5th grader? Now this one perhaps makes the most sense at all. Even though it aired on Fox for most of its run, it is very much a kids' game show. It aired on The Hub for the 5 seconds that existed. It aired on Nickelodeon for its own season, hosted by John Cena, because who the hell else would you get? Game shows are more appealing to, you know, in my opinion, older people, especially trivia shows. Children can't play along with those, but with this one, the trivia questions are meant to be for children. You know, 6th grade level questions like, what does a hygrometer measure? You know, I was actually talking to a 6th grader earlier, so of course I know that a hygrometer measures humidity. There's a couple of different panels here. There's the money ladder, and there's the category selector thingy. They have little pawns, I want to say, for the copy, save, and peek cheats. Those are kind of like the lifelines in the game. And it also does come with some player pawns here. So the way that the money ladder works in this version is as you advance up, you just move your pawn up and up and up, and then back down, and then up and up and up. It doesn't look exactly like how it does on the original game. I don't know why they can't just scoop the original graphics from it. I assume that these are made in collaboration with the official productions, but I digress. This version does a lot right. It comes with pads of paper and pencils for the players to individually write down their own answers and then show them, kind of like the original show. The little question marker thingy here, I like how they eliminate the questions here by covering them up like that. It looks pretty similar to the original show. And I like that there's a little divider here to keep the questions organized. So you got 1st grade math, 2nd grade geography, etc. You can just draw and spill the fucking cards everywhere if you set it up like that. Definitely 100% a good version of this game. Now, something not a lot of people might know is that Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader changes its format more often than Jeff Foxworthy washes his hair. So I guess 3 times. So with respect to that, they released a second version of... Ow! Fuck me, dude. They released a second version of the game based off the syndicated version. Now, the way that the original game worked is that when you got a question wrong, you lost the whole game. That was it. Your run ends there. The way that the syndicated version worked is that you could still advance on even after getting a question wrong, just the progress you have built up over time gets eliminated. It still comes with a divider to keep the questions nice and organized. They don't have pawns anymore for the save, peek, and copy lifelines there, but I don't really have a problem with that. But I don't like how they handled the money tree scoring ladder thing here, which they don't even have, because in this version, you're trying to collect money cumulatively as you go up. So each 1st grade question is worth $500, each 2nd grade's worth $1,000, and so on. You can read, I believe. And I guess the way you mark it is that you just put a chip on it like that. It doesn't look like the game. It's not a good parallel. I don't like that this is the way they did it. They should have just done the same thing they did in the original, where it's little bars that go on top of it. Now, what's weird is that even in the syndicated run of the show, they did change the format a little bit. So you see how it goes from 1st to 5th grade, and then there's a bonus question that's at a 6th grade level? Because then that proves you are smarter than a 5th grader, not as smart as a 5th grader. That's not the challenge of the fucking game. The 2nd season of the syndicated version of Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader includes questions from the 1st to 4th grade, and then a 5th grade question beyond that. That is proving you are as smart as a 5th grader, not smarter than. What the fuck? To the person that made that change, are you smarter than a 5th grader? Holy shit, dude. The last version here is kinda cute. It comes in an Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader themed lunchbox for you to get bullied at school. And it comes with a CD. I don't know what is on the CD, and I'm too terrified that it has spyware to put it into my computer. But I'll just assume that it's a compilation of Jeff Foxworthy's praises and adorations. Now, for this version here, it's a little bit different. You don't get a board, you get a pad of paper. I guess that's a trend that you might have noticed. It's based off the 1st version of the game, so there's a little money ladder here. So the 1st edition of the board game didn't specify what category each grade level question was going to be. This version attempts to solve that by setting it up like this. So if there's a 1st grade math question and a 1st grade English language arts question, then you would set it up like that, and then you just do it like this and so on. It doesn't look like the original game. The parallel is not very well drawn. Now, something substantially different from the original game is that in the original game, the cheats were based on the other players that you had with you. So you're just kind of copying or peeking off the answers of the other people that are playing alongside you. So you can't really play with 2 people because some person needs to be the host, some person needs to be a contestant, and with that setup, there's no one to copy off of. With this version, you can quite effectively play by yourself. There are 5 personalities of dead 5th graders that have been immortalized in these cards. Certain 5th graders will be better at certain subjects, and some will be bad at others. The way that you determine what one you get is to roll the die. I mean, it's kind of cute. I do like that they have a specialty die here that's printed with a mini copy of the logo, and I like that you can play this by yourself. You can play it against yourself, which is something that a lot of board games, even real board games can't do. So I might say that you can't really go wrong with any version of the board game. Now, there was yet another format of the game that was aired on Nickelodeon, hosted by John Cena inexplicably. I don't know if they made a board game version of that, but I sure God do hope not, because that version is terrible.
Biggest prize in Nickelodeon history! $100,000!
Yeah, the highest prize in the history of Nickelodeon is also the lowest prize in the history of the show. Thanks, Zhao China. Maybe if you sell what's left of your soul to the Chinese Communist Party, maybe you'll have a higher prize pot. You hack. Go fuck yourself. Oh, hell nah! It's the Family Feud! Alright, it's Family Feud, man. You know how it's played. Your grandmother's probably seen it, I don't know, maybe 17,000 times. I do gotta say, though, that the setup to this board is quite complicated.
Oh, hell no! Oh, hell! Yes! Thought about killing myself!
Now let's talk about something I like. I like that they've recreated the game board here with these little pull-out slider panels here. That's authenticity. It's like a mini version of the actual game board. I feel like something they could have done is put numbers on these, like the actual game board, but that's quite trivial in comparison to some of my other complaints here. There are a lot of layers between the outer board here and the actual piece of paper. 1, 2, 3. That is deeply recessed into the game board, which makes it a bit difficult to read. Besides insomnia, name a reason people have trouble sleeping. And then when you say illness/pain, survey says... Well, did I get it? I can't tell. The strikes, for some reason, also just straight up aren't in color. I don't know if there was like a red ink shortage or something. And these mechanisms for the panels here feel pretty rickety. There's no buzzers to do the face-off round here. You just kind of hit the table like an irritated restaurant patron. It does include fast money questions here, but there's no way to put the fast money responses on the board for semi-obvious reasons, so... I don't know. It's kind of a weak way to play the board game here, but... it's not the weakest version. Here we have Mr. Funny Man himself, Steve Harvey. Survey says. Now you might be wondering why this is cut to shit here. And it's because on another channel I was doing a racism of him. Yeah, there's no panels, there's no funny business here, you just get whiteboards. Basically, the cheapest way they could have done it. This is another one by Endless Games, who we've seen before in some of these other game show ones, and they tend to make the weakest versions of the game show board games.
Probably the most major drawback about this implementation is that the boxes they provide for you to put the responses in are way too small. So if you're trying to put anyone's name in, unless their name is Bono, you're going to have a difficult time fitting it in unless you get creative.
This version's also quite old, like 10 years old, so you can see 10 years of just grease and filth stuck on it from being wiped on and wiped off, wax on and wax off. I hate it. I hate it at Endless Games. It's not fair. Give us back the panels! That was meant to lead into me talking about this one, but I should talk about the card game first because it is absolutely horrible. So, there's nothing here. Just questions, and 3 strike cards. There's nothing fancy about this. It is as raw as you can get. And so, given that it's just a pack of questions, maybe you'd want to buy it for one of your Family Feud board games or something. That's what I did, just as supplementary material, because the questions get outdated or eventually you get through them all. But the questions they give you are fucking atrocious. When making a reservation for dinner, which famous person's name would you give to guarantee getting a good table? And the responses are Brad Pitt, Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, Julia Roberts, George Clooney, and Bill Clinton. What is this fucking list? Now, first of all, the answers are supposed to total out in points to around 100. Sometimes it's not exactly. They have a couple oddballs in the survey, but 986654, how does that even a question? And these responses are so granular and disparate that nobody's gonna get them. It mentions Donald Trump and Bill Clinton in the same question. George Clooney and Oprah Winfrey? What year is this from? Here's another question. Name a device some people just can't figure out how to work. Steve Harvey's fucking little damaged mind, I guess. He can't figure out how to operate that. That's why he's a homophobe. But the top response is VCR/DVD player for 2019. And one of the responses is GameCube. Not just generally game console or anything. The Nintendo GameCube from 2001. Like, what are you, my dad? Survey says, chuck this in the fucking garbage. Alright, the last one here. Family Feud. It's trying to be themed after the Richard Dawson era of the show. It doesn't permit you to grope the contestants, unfortunately. They really simplified the game board down. It is just one piece, and you put this second piece in to secure it, which you don't even really necessarily need, but I still use it because I'm a little sweet boy. There are quite a few pluses that this has. It includes 70s questions and modern questions, so it's the retro version, so you can kind of feel like you're in the 1970s, man. Bust the groove thing, or whatever the hell they did back then, I don't know. They could have numbered these tabs here, but I like that the whole board is just one mechanism. Now, Fast Money is still just a whiteboard. Now, it kind of necessitates it being a whiteboard because the answers that are given are custom, and even though they are bigger, the spaces are still too damn small. But I can forgive it that it's only at one stage of the game. You're not really messing with it too much. So, this is the version to buy if you see it. It has 70s questions, it has modern questions, it has the little slidey panels, and it minimizes the amount of time you have to use a whiteboard. All around, this is the version to buy. And here we find ourselves at the one-offs. These are games that I only own one copy of. Ooh, so I can't compare these to any other versions that may or may not exist, but I don't even think any alternate versions exist, so what you see is what you get. I'm judging these based on the only versions that I own. The first version here is Win, Lose, or Draw. Now I'm gonna spoil something for you. Win, Lose, or Draw, the television show, is Pictionary. They couldn't just release Pictionary, of course, so the board game isn't anything like the show. There's a bunch of shit in it. What is this? I don't want to learn new shit. I'm American. As much fun as the TV game show, it's not even like the TV game show. There's like pawns and dice and all sorts of different wackiness and crap. I like the custom stationery, I guess. Double Cross, because that's how I feel. Now the next one here is another Endless Games entry, oh boy. Pyramid Home Game. Not the $100,000 or the $50,000 or even the $25,000. It's just a pyramid. This was the era of the show that was on GSN, the Game Show Network. Now, despite their namesake of being the network for game shows, they're pretty fucking cheap when it comes to game shows. They have some of the lowest top prizes being offered in the game show scene. You expect people to get excited about $10,000 split between 4 people in 2024? Where do you live? Fucking Venezuela? I do like how this is set up. It's pretty cute. You just kind of slide it into the pyramid setup here. And on the back is obfuscated by red text. Now this is actually the strongest security system known to man. If you don't know, my side hustle is actually being a member of the CIA, and this system is actually what I use to store everyone's social security number. Oops. There's some cuteness here. They have these score cards actually built into the board itself like this. They have a 20-second timer that's filled with black pepper, it seems. While even in the board game version where everything's fictional, they have things so much cheaper. On the original show, these were like thousands of dollars, and this was decades prior to this one. This is the setup for the final round here, and I don't know how they expect me to attach these like this, but it comes with these cards that go over them, but there's no way that they actually hook on. I mean, I'm being a bit sardonic here, but it is leaps and bounds beyond the quality of the current $100,000 pyramid game that they're offering.
Because first of all, it's hosted by a fucking football player with brain damage that somehow tricked his way into being a fucking reporter on a national broadcaster. What a fucking charmer. He's a guy that should be on television, someone that can't even get words out of his mouth. And secondly, in the current version of the game that's being offered, that's for retail right now, there are only 10 possible games you can play with it. $3 a game? Are you fucking kidding me? The Jeopardy from Five Below gave me a better rate than that. 1 versus 100. Now this is based off the version that was on NBC. Thankfully not the version that was on GSN. If that was the case, they might make this out of like toilet paper or something. So the original game show had a top prize of $1 million. They had a huge studio. They had 100 people in that you faced off right before you. The GSN version, top prize is $50,000, and they have a bunch of people over fucking Zoom on. Not that I'm bitter or anything. There's a little disorienting grid here, a magic marker wipe-off thing, and some little privacy voting panels here. You can bring this with you on election day to keep your vote secure. It comes with these little recreations of the anonymous response buzzers thing. I guess this is to hide this, but there's no information that's actually being inputted. It's cardboard. Okay, so looking at the actual instructions here, the reason for these little shields here is that these are kind of like chips. So you're betting how confident you are on a specific answer. The shield is revealed, and then that's how many mob members you have eliminated from the game. Now, 1 versus 100 is a bit more unique than other shows like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where it's just a straight-up trivia game where you're trying to advance on to the next question. 1 versus 100 could theoretically go on infinitely, because the way you advance in the prize board here is you're trying to eliminate a certain amount of the mob. The game ends when you eliminate all 100 people. It's kind of like you're sent on the original 300 mission. You want to be the last one surviving. I am Bob Saget! Rest in peace, by the way. I don't know, man. This one feels a bit too context-specific. I do appreciate that there is a lot of the original branding here. It looks very authentic. Like, the graphics aren't just, you know, black and white random pieces of crap. They actually try to recreate the look and feel of the show. I just don't think it's strong enough to work. And then the final one here is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? This came out in 2000 and is based off the run hosted by Regis Philbin. Rest in peace. Man, it's just not been a good time for game show hosts, has it been? So they have the questions already pre-sorted out for you like this by dollar amount. The higher the dollar amount, the more difficult the question is. The aim of the game is to get through 15 questions in a row to earn the $1 million. You get some chips here to phone a friend, ask the audience, or to get a 50-50. I keep these in my pocket at all time in case of emergency. And something that's quite neat that a lot of people point out that they appreciate is that each of these has a little holder for each question. It feels more like the show. So if you, for example, use the 50-50, you can eliminate 2 of the wrong answers, like this. The answer is also revealed through a tiny hole on the back, which is pretty cute. And it comes with 5 of these. They didn't even have to include 1, and they give you 5 plastic little mechanisms. That's pretty cool. The graphics are very authentic to the original game, and it comes with a bunch of custom play money. It's not like the generic Milton Bradley money that comes with a lot of the game show kits. Well, firstly, because this isn't made by Milton Bradley, it's made by Pressman. I don't know, even though I kind of made fun of some of the play money earlier, you know, this looks really cool. You want to earn this, don't you? It even comes with custom cards for the poll the audience or phone a friend thing. Although, the way that they suggest you play this is you just kind of shuffle the cards and draw one randomly. It kind of removes the utility of it being a lifeline. You can play it with 2 players. Ideally, you'd want to play it with 3 in case you want to phone a friend or do the poll thing in a way that actually matters. And I hope to God they didn't make a version based off the Jimmy Kimmel version. Something inexplicable that they didn't include is the actual money tree here. You just kind of have to follow along with the cards. I feel like they could have given you like something like Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader and a pawn where you just advance the pawn forward. But, I mean, this is really solid and thorough, and I really appreciate them going the extra mile, giving you like the plastic cover, giving you the accurate branding. It feels authentic. And the next one here is Price is Right. Now, I don't have any version of Price is Right except for one, and I'll pull that out later. Now, here's the thing about Price is Right. some of the games that I've shown off have kind of revealed in the board game format that the games themselves, when you get down to their core, are very weak. Price is Right is the biggest victim of that. The conceit of 90% of Price is Right games is just guessing the correct price, and then you get more chances at this game of chance you're brought up to. For example, with Plinko, you're trying to guess the price of 4 items to get 4 more Plinko chips, and then you just drop it into the Plinko machine. It's a game of chance. The way they do Plinko in the board game version of Price is Right is you just draw a card to see what you get. You might as well just put 2 cards in the box that say whether you win or lose. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey with Price is Right. The games only work when contextualized in a big stage studio setting. There's a lot of weakness with it. A spinner instead of an actual wheel. No recreation of Contestants Row or anything. It is really, really asking you to use your imagination. So this is electronic. You turn it on, you get the theme. Wow, it's like I'm there with Bob Barker. Rest in peace. Now something kind of strange right off the bat here is that it's asking me if I want the sound off and to press enter for yes or cancel for no. There's no enter or cancel buttons on this. I don't know what it's talking about. Is the asterisk the universal cancel symbol? Let's find out. So the way this works is you put the card on top, you get some lovely images to gauge off of, and then you type in the contestant's row number, 419, and then you hit the universal symbol for enter, a period. You type in your bid, so I'm gonna bid $1. So I'm gonna bid $1. I fucking get it. And then contestant 2 is gonna bid $99,999. Now let's see who's closer. Oh, wow. We then pick a prize card and type in the number. So we're gonna do clock game. That's 212. Press enter. It looks like there's no way to skip past these little animations here. Listen, this is fucking boring. I'll show you guys what you want to see. So on the side here, they have a pretty authentic replication of the Price is Right wheel. They didn't bother to try and include some kind of flipper. I think on a smaller size, it would really just hinder the actual quality of it. On the back here, you have a replica of Plinko. Woo! Now, personally, I think this is the strongest at-home experience you can get for Price is Right. You got the sounds, you got the games, and those are the things that make the games work. But like I said, the games themselves are pretty weak. Even the most iconic ones like Plinko, it's just chance, man. And some of the weaker ones like Grocery Game or High-Low, like, you can just play that by yourself, man. You don't need this. If you're a huge Drew head, this is the only way to go. It's painful for me to even acknowledge the old Price is Right board games because they are highway robbery. And the last one here is Press Your Luck. Now, here's a fun fact. I got myself banned from ever applying to a Fremantle Games produced game show because I criticized the Press Your Luck board game. There's a video I made on another channel explaining the ins and outs of that, but basically, I got someone at Fremantle so mad that they blacklisted me. So I didn't even give them the time of day to buy a copy of their game, and I'm going to demonstrate a point with this, actually. Press Your Luck has been around since 1985. It was one of the biggest, most exciting, technologically advanced game shows out there. And so naturally, the first home game edition of it released in 2020. And all it is just paper cards and whiteboards and a completely superfluous whammy plushie to justify the extortionate $30 price tag. There is no way you can play the game without the app, which means eventually it's just not going to be playable anymore. So this is my suggestion here. Some people might be thinking that you should use a spinner to replicate the game board, but the game board in Press Your Luck is different from other game shows. Instead of just spinning it and seeing where it lands, in Press Your Luck, you decide when you want to stop. So, using the wheel from this game here, caught on tape, I'm going to demonstrate how you could possibly do that. You could have a layout that looks like the original board, And then here is the open space. You could have like a little white square around it. It indicates that it's selected. You spin it, and then have a mechanism that allows the player to stop it on what they want to. It would spin fast enough so that way, you know, they can't actually cheat at it, and you can still go, big money, no whammy, stop if you're a big, you know, whammy head. Kind of like the brake pads on a rotor or something. There could be an outer mechanism that squeezes it to stop it. I feel like it really did not take that much brain power to come up with such an elegant solution, but, you know, maybe I'm just God's favorite. The fact I'm even talking right now proves there is no God, actually. So, caught on tape, in case you're wondering, because you've probably never seen this before, fucking sucks. This was $4 at Ollie's, man. At Ollie's. And I think I'm going to let you guys go for now. I've done enough autistic rambling. It's a subject I'm quite passionate about, and hopefully some of that passion wore off on you for you to join me this long to the end of the video. If it did, please like the video, and please subscribe to see more videos similar to this one. Thank you so much.